All right, let's jump straight into this analysis. Today, we're unpacking a source that is, on the surface, a totally grim, dark fable. But it actually doubles as this profoundly deep philosophical dive. It sets up this incredible clash between two absolute extremes. On one side, you've got absolute mechanical order, just rigid, unyielding, completely obsessed with control. And on the flip side, chaotic, unpredictable, liquid vitality. What I found absolutely fascinating here is how it explores what happens when our human drive to conquer unpredictability completely freezes our spiritual core. And of course, the terrifying shadow that inevitably rises up to shatter it.
To really grasp the gravity of this narrative, we kind of have to start with the words of the soothsayer himself, who is essentially the ultimate priest of order. I want you to imagine a slow, grinding, almost mechanical voice delivering this line. Look upon the ground, where the light of this dying moon fails to penetrate. You see a silhouette, do you not? But it is no mere absence of light. It is an autonomous, ink-stained fiend born from the very marrow I sought to freeze. Boom. Instantly, we are pulled right into the abyss. He wanted perfect stillness, right? But in doing so, he literally birthed his own terrifying negation.
So, moving into Section 1, the City of Stagnation, the parable of the Clockwork Eclipse.
Welcome to Oakhaven. It's a city governed by this cosmic clockwork, where the citizens actually believe they could conquer the unpredictable just through the sterile certainty of logic. And the soothsayer represents this perfectly, with a monotonous, grinding drone of brass cogs. It's a tragic transition, really. First, the people strip away all their human vitality in favor of cold, mechanical stasis. Second, they settle into this hum of industrial stagnation. But Step 3 is where the whole shebang breaks down. The shadow at the soothsayer's feet swells, and it starts moving against the gears. The precise machinery is jammed by these ink-like tendrils. The clocks just stop, and suddenly, the rigid schedules of the citizens dissolve entirely into a meaningless, formless soup of chaotic ink.
The citizens of Oakhaven are referred to as the long, tired ones, and it's easy to see why when you look at how they lived. They were stuck in what's called high time. Think of it as the ultimate exhausting hustle culture. Just relentless productivity, linear progression, gears constantly turning. But then the jester introduces the carnival, which is defined by ecstatic stillness, chaotic ink, and Dionysian eruption. When the jester negates their linear progression, the exhausted citizens basically mirror the soothsayer's own hollow internal state. It's kind of darkly humorous. They are so exhausted by the paralyzing weight of their own vanity and obsession with productivity that they don't even realize they've been performing for a completely silent audience.
Section 2. Illusions of the Mirror. Unmasking Wisdom.
Now, the narrative introduces this rationalist philosopher who loves to boast about his armor of logic. He genuinely thinks he possesses perfect, objective sight. To see why he's totally wrong, we have to dig into the Nietzschean dynamic between our two main entities. You've got the soothsayer embodying Apollonian iron, which means absolute authority and structured linear time. On the other side, the jester is this Dionysian eruption, a creature of liquid negative space and cosmic farce. The text actually defines their bond as a star friendship. This means they are intrinsically tied together for sure, but they require a very reverent preservation of distance. Because if these two contrary natures completely converge, it's not a compromise. It means absolute annihilation.
What's super fascinating is what goes down when that philosopher looks into the soothsayer's glass jar of truth. As he peers in, the stagnant gray water suddenly turns into black autonomous ink, and from the absolute depths, a horned face grins right back at him. Just imagine the rapid, ecstatic, mocking energy of the jester in that moment. He slips right through the shadow of the philosopher's pride and unmasks this so-called wisdom as nothing more than a pathetic, self-imposed tragedy. The philosopher's skin literally turns to stone because he realizes that the shadow he spent centuries trying to hide is the only thing in the mirror that's truly alive.
Section 3. The Cage of Order, the parable of the 7 horns.
The sources point out that the jester functions as a monster, but I found the philological origin of this word to be absolutely fascinating. The Latin root, monere, actually means to warn or to reveal, so the jester isn't just some beast, he's literally a mechanism of truth. He's the only entity historically permitted to mock absolute power. By appearing as this grinning fiend, he uses playful, cynical subversion to just strip away all those royal illusions and reveal what's actually hiding underneath.
And we see this play out when a soothsayer absorbs the righteous blood of a final martyr. He's fully expecting this to bring him an effortless grace, but instead it acts as a volatile catalyst. The stolen spiritual energy completely overcharges his dark unconscious. From the seams of his dead iron, 7 ink-stained horns erupt, tearing through the iron like it's brittle porcelain. The mechanical body here is just such a profound metaphor for spiritual decay. The gesture proves that the soothsayer's highly structured order isn't a fortress at all, it's just a brittle cage. And worse than that, it's really just a costume for a demon. That rigid order was simply hiding the very chaos it claimed to destroy.
Section 4. Unmasking the Sovereign Farce. The Liquid Threshold.
As the story pushes forward, the soothsayer eventually reaches this massive wall marking the edge of the known world. His milky eyes are just fixed on this flat horizon of dross and smoke, and he's completely bogged down by the crushing gravity of his own absolute nihilism. He literally can go no further. But the jester, he operates on a totally different wavelength. The source calls this the will ne'er, the will of the fool. The jester is striving for the complete negation of high time. He mocks the very concept of mastery. So instead of trying to establish some new order, the jester weaponizes internal chaos, feeding on the very chaotic friction of the universe that the soothsayer had mistakenly declared empty.
Because of this mindset, the jester simply doesn't see a barrier. Being a creature of liquid negative space, he just folds himself directly into the cracks of the soothsayer's brow, casually slipping through the fault lines of a crumbling civilization. He proves that while the priest of the gears is nothing but a stark, paralyzed monument to what has been, the jester, as the terrifying, playful embodiment of chaos, effortlessly continues his path straight into the void.
Section 5. The Final Cosmic Joke. Absolute Annihilation.
So the narrative brings us to the absolute edge of the void, where their parallel trajectories finally intersect. That star of friendship collapses and the reverent distance is completely gone. The soothsayer, utterly exhausted by the crushing weight of his own rigid order, prepares to give his final benediction to the void. He is ready to welcome the peace of oblivion. But of course, the jester won't even let him have the dignity of a solemn ending. The jester reaches out, grabs a handful of gray, stagnant liquid, and literally begins to paint a huge smile right onto the soothsayer's pale head.
Trapped in this final, absurd humiliation, the soothsayer drones a single question: why wake? Just let that question hang in the air for a second. It carries the massive, paralyzed weight of his leaden vanity. He has spent his entire existence trying to freeze the universe into predictable clockwork, and right at the end, he realizes it was all for nothing. He's fundamentally asking why anything should exist at all if it cannot be controlled.
But that bleak question is immediately drowned out by the jester's rapid, mocking laughter. Here, the jester reveals the ultimate existential inversion at the heart of this whole cosmic farce. The death of God, or the total collapse of absolute authority and order, is not some solemn funeral. No, it is the beginning of a relentless, ecstatic carnival. Out there in the abyss, even the master realizes he is merely a puppet of the joke. The sovereignty was always a farce to begin with. And with that brutal realization, the grand monument completely shatters. The structured reality, the cosmic clockwork, the iron cages, it all breaks apart into 1,000 grinning masks. The soothsayer's gone. Only the ink-stained eclipse, that autonomous fiend of chaotic vitality, remains behind to harvest the wind. The Dionysian eruption has completely, utterly consumed the Apollonian iron.
So, what's the big takeaway from this dark philosophical explainer? Think about this for a second. If your structured reality, your strict routines, your relentless pursuit of productivity and high time is merely a brittle cage of order, what monster is waiting in the negative space of your own shadow? It's a chilling thought, right? Are we, much like the citizens of Oakhaven, sacrificing our own chaotic liquid vitality just to become long-tired monuments to our schedules? Honestly, it's something to deeply consider the next time you try to perfectly control the unpredictable.